1937. Berlin. Walk into any pharmacy in Germany. Any pharmacy at all. A 10-year-old child could do it. No adult supervision required. No prescription needed. No questions asked. Hand over 1 Reichsmark and 50 Pfennigs, less than the cost of a loaf of bread. Walk out with a small white box. Open it. Inside, 20 tablets of pure methamphetamine hydrochloride. 3 milligrams per pill. The label read Pervitin in crisp black letters. Beneath it, the promise. Enhanced alertness and performance. What the label didn't say, you just bought crystal meth, legal, over the counter, endorsed by doctors, advertised in newspapers. Temmler Pharma didn't hide what they were selling, they celebrated it. The advertisements covered Berlin, posted on street corners, printed in magazines, plastered across pharmacy windows. Alertness, energy, confidence, one proclaimed. Perfect for night shifts, another promised. No addiction risk, the boldest claimed. That last part was a lie, but in 1937 nobody knew it yet. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? The drug spread through German society like water through cloth. Housewives bought it to clean their homes. Students used it to study through the night. Factory workers took it to survive double shifts. Truck drivers popped pills to drive across the country without rest. Businessmen consumed it before important meetings. By 1938, Pervitin had evolved beyond pills. Hildebrand Chocolate Company started producing special chocolate bars. They called them Panzerschokolade, tank chocolate. Each bar contained methamphetamine. You could eat meth like candy, buy it at any corner store, give it to your children as a treat. The entire nation was consuming crystal meth, daily, willingly, legally. They called it progress. They called it modern medicine. They called it the wonder drug of the 20th century. The truth was darker, much darker. Methamphetamine wasn't new. Japanese chemist Nagai Nagayoshi first synthesized it in 1893, 44 years before Pervitin appeared in German pharmacies. German chemist Friedrich Hauschild refined the formula in 1919, made it more potent, more stable. But Temmler Pharma perfected it. They created the ideal delivery system, small white tablets, easy to swallow, easy to distribute, easy to dose. 3 milligrams of pure methamphetamine hydrochloride per pill. What happened when you swallowed one? The effects hit within 30 minutes. Dopamine floods your brain, the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure, motivation, focus. Your heart rate doubles, sometimes triples. Your pupils dilate until your eyes look black. Your appetite vanishes completely. Food becomes irrelevant. Sleep becomes impossible. Your body refuses to rest. Pain sensitivity drops to nearly zero. Injuries don't hurt. Exhaustion doesn't register. For 8 to 12 hours you feel invincible, unstoppable, superhuman. Then comes the crash, but we'll get to that later. Picture this, Berlin, 1938. 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. A mother of 3 walks into her neighborhood pharmacy. She's 32 years old, works 10 hours a day at a textile factory, comes home to cook, clean, care for her children. She's exhausted, perpetually exhausted, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The pharmacist knows her, sees her every week. He smiles and reaches under the counter, pulls out a small white box. 2 tablets in the morning, he says. You'll feel wonderful. She pays 1 Reichsmark and 50 Pfennigs, less than bread costs, takes the box home. The next morning she swallows 1 tablet with water, waits. 30 minutes later, everything changes. The exhaustion vanishes, completely, instantly. She feels alert, focused, energized. The house practically cleans itself. She moves through rooms like a machine. By lunchtime, she's reorganized every closet in the apartment, cleaned windows, scrubbed floors, cooked dinner for the entire week, and she still has energy to spare. She doesn't notice the warning signs. She hasn't eaten since yesterday. Food seems pointless. Her hands won't stop moving. Constant motion, fidgeting, adjusting, cleaning. Her jaw is clenched so tight her teeth ache. She's been talking non-stop for 3 hours. Talking to her children. Talking to neighbors. Talking to herself. Her pupils are huge, black circles that swallow her eyes. But she feels amazing. Better than she's felt in years. So she takes another pill the next day, and the day after that. This scene repeated across Germany. Millions of civilians taking methamphetamine daily. University students used it during exam week, studied for 36 hours straight, memorized entire textbooks without sleep. Long-haul truck drivers took it to drive through the night, crossed the country without stopping. Businessmen consumed it before important meetings. Closed deals with supernatural confidence. One Berlin doctor wrote in his diary, "My patients request Pervitin the way they used to request aspirin." Nobody questioned it. Why would they question it? The government wasn't warning anyone. The Reich Health Office approved it. The medical establishment praised it. Published studies in prestigious journals, documented the benefits, ignored the risks. The advertisements promised enhanced performance with no side effects. They lied, but nobody knew that yet. Temmler Pharma was making a fortune, millions of Reichsmarks. By 1939, they were producing millions of tablets monthly. New production lines, expanded factories, hired hundreds of workers, all sold legally, all purchased willingly. The entire nation was getting high, and they called it progress. They called it German innovation. They called it the future of medicine. What they didn't call it was what it actually was. A methamphetamine epidemic. Government approved. Corporate sponsored. Socially acceptable. The largest drug distribution operation in human history, and it was just getting started. Then someone in the Wehrmacht noticed something interesting, something that would change everything. Workers taking Pervitin didn't need sleep. They worked double shifts without complaint. Students on Pervitin studied for 30 hours straight. No fatigue, no decline in performance. Housewives on Pervitin cleaned their homes with superhuman energy, never stopped moving. A military doctor named Otto Friedrich Ranke was paying attention. He was the Reich's chief researcher for military performance enhancement. His job was finding ways to make German soldiers better, faster, stronger, more effective. He'd been searching for years, trying different approaches, different chemicals, different methods. Nothing worked. Until he saw Pervitin. He had a thought, a dangerous thought. A thought that would reshape modern warfare. What if our soldiers took this into battle? Otto Friedrich Ranke wasn't just a doctor. He was something far more dangerous. The Reich's chief researcher for military performance enhancement. His official title meant nothing. His real job was darker. Find ways to make German soldiers into something beyond human. Strip away their limitations. Eliminate their weaknesses. Turn them into machines that never stopped, never slept, never broke. His greatest enemy wasn't the French army, wasn't the British forces, wasn't even the Russians. It was fatigue, the thing that destroyed armies, the thing that lost wars. World War I taught Germany a brutal lesson. Exhausted soldiers lose battles, every single time. Tired men make fatal mistakes, miss the target, stumble during the charge, fall asleep on watch. Sleep-deprived armies collapse. The history books proved it. Ranke needed a solution. He'd been searching for years, tried everything. Different training methods, different nutrition plans, different sleep schedules. Nothing worked. Then he read about Pervitin, about housewives cleaning for 12 hours straight, about students studying for 36 hours without rest, about workers functioning on double shifts. He saw something nobody else saw. Potential, military potential, but he needed proof, not anecdotes, not civilian testimonials. Scientific proof, hard data, numbers the high command couldn't ignore. Berlin Military Academy, autumn 1938, 8 o'clock in the evening. Ranke gathered 90 university medical students, all young men, all healthy, all volunteers. They thought they were participating in a routine military study. They had no idea they were about to make history. Ranke split them into 4 groups. Group 1 received Pervitin, 3 milligrams of pure methamphetamine. Group 2 received Benzedrine, a different amphetamine compound, American-made, less potent. Group 3 received caffeine pills, standard military issue. Group 4 received placebo tablets, sugar pills, nothing active. The test protocol was simple, brutally simple. Stay awake, perform assigned tasks, report how you feel, no breaks, no rest. Keep going until you collapse. The students started at 8 p.m. Ranke gave them math problems, complex calculations, memory tests, lists of words to memorize, physical exercises, push-ups, jumping jacks, running in place. Repeat, over and over, hour after hour. He watched, he recorded. He waited to see who would break first. At 10 p.m. the placebo group was yawning, rubbing their eyes, making mistakes on the math problems, forgetting words from the memory tests. At midnight the caffeine group was struggling. The initial boost had worn off. They were fighting to stay alert, making more errors, slowing down. At 2 a.m. the Benzedrine group was fading, still functioning, but clearly declining. Reaction times dropping, accuracy decreasing. At 6 a.m. the Pervitin group was still going strong, not just functioning, thriving. Eyes wide, bodies moving with precision. Math problems solved correctly. Memory tests passed perfectly. Physical exercises performed without hesitation. At 10 a.m., 14 hours after starting, Ranke wrote in his notes. The entry would later become famous, cited in military journals, referenced in history books. The Pervitin subjects are requesting to go out and party. The caffeine subjects are asleep on benches. The placebo subjects left hours ago. Clear winner. Undeniable winner. Pervitin dominated every metric, every measurement, every category. No contest. Ronka didn't stop there. One test proved nothing. Could be anomaly, could be chance, could be selection bias. He needed more data. Much more data. He conducted dozens of trials over the next 6 months. Different test subjects, different conditions, different protocols. Same results. Every single time. The data was overwhelming. Physical performance metrics showed dramatic improvements. Soldiers on Pervitin marched 25% longer distances than controls. Same load, same terrain. 25% further before showing fatigue. Reaction times improved by 30%. Faster responses, better accuracy, fewer mistakes. Pain tolerance doubled. Test subjects endured significantly more discomfort before reporting pain. Fatigue symptoms disappeared for 8 to 12 hours. Complete elimination. Not reduction. Elimination. Mental performance showed similar gains. Mathematical accuracy increased. Complex calculations solved faster and more correctly. Decision-making speed improved. Faster choices without sacrificing quality. Fear responses decreased dramatically. Measured through physiological markers, heart rate, cortisol levels, behavioral observation. Confidence levels soared. Self-reported surveys, observer assessments, performance metrics. One test subject wrote in his evaluation form, "I feel no fear. I feel no pain. I feel invincible." Another wrote, "I could march to Moscow right now." These weren't empty boasts. The physiological data supported their claims. Ranka compiled everything into a comprehensive report. 127 pages, charts showing performance curves, graphs comparing control groups to Pervitin groups, scientific data, methodology, results, statistical analysis. The conclusion was clear, undeniable, revolutionary. Pervitin represents the most significant advancement in military performance enhancement since gunpowder. He sent it to the Surgeon General of the German Army, an old-school military doctor, 63 years old, trained before modern pharmaceuticals existed, didn't believe in chemical enhancement, thought soldiers should rely on discipline, training, character, not drugs. The response? Silence. No reply. No acknowledgement. Nothing. Ranka waited 2 weeks, sent a follow-up letter. Still nothing. Sent another. "We must implement this before the Poland campaign." Silence. Another letter. "Soldiers will take it anyway. We should control distribution." Ignored. Final letter. This could change warfare forever. The Surgeon General literally didn't respond. Filed the reports in a drawer. Never looked at them again. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades Poland. Officially, Pervitin is not part of Wehrmacht supplies. The Surgeon General never authorized it. Ranka's research was shelved. Forgotten. Ignored. But German soldiers knew about Pervitin. Their wives used it. Their friends used it. Half the country used it. Available at every pharmacy. So they brought their own, packed it with their personal supplies, carried it in their pockets, shared it with their units. Field reports started coming back to military headquarters. Medical officers sending observations. Troops are taking Pervitin without authorization. Men are staying awake for 36 hours during advances. Performance on the battlefield is exceptional. One company commander reported, "My men have been marching and fighting for 2 days straight. 0 casualties from fatigue-related mistakes." Poland fell in 28 days, faster than anyone predicted, including Hitler. The speed shocked the world, shocked Germany's own military leadership. How did they move so fast? How did they maintain the offensive? How did they never stop? Ronka knew the answer. He immediately requested field reports from every medical officer in Poland, sent official requests through military channels. Did your men use Pervitin? What were the effects? Document everything. The responses flooded in, hundreds of reports from officers across Poland, different units, different battles, different conditions. Almost all positive, overwhelmingly positive. Morale stayed high even during intense combat. Soldiers performed beyond normal human limits. The drug eliminated fear responses. Men fought for days without rest. Performance exceeded all expectations. One report stood out, caught Ronka's attention immediately. A tank commander wrote that his crew stayed operational for 72 hours of continuous combat. 3 days, 3 nights, 0 sleep. They captured a strategic bridge, held it against multiple counterattacks, fought off Polish forces trying to retake it, only stopped when the battle ended, when Poland surrendered. The crew reported feeling alert and capable throughout. No decline in performance, no mistakes from fatigue. Ronka compiled everything into a second report, thicker than the first. More data, more evidence, more proof. This time, he didn't send it to the Surgeon General. That door was closed. He sent it directly to the High Command, to the generals planning the invasion of France. 3 young tank generals were developing something radical, something that violated every rule of conventional warfare. A new strategy, a new type of warfare. They called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. The concept was simple. Hit fast, hit hard, never stop. Overwhelm the enemy before they can respond, before they can organize, before they can defend. But it had one impossible requirement, one problem nobody could solve. The army would have to move for 3 days and 3 nights, without stopping, without sleeping, without rest. Advance continuously. Fight continuously. Press the attack until the enemy collapsed. Everyone said it was impossible. The human body can't do that. Soldiers need sleep, need food, need rest. The generals agreed. Impossible under normal circumstances. Then, they read Ronka's report. Winter, 1939 to 1940. Hitler's office in the Reich Chancellery. 3 tank generals presented their plan. Heinz Guderian, Erich von Manstein, Erwin Rommel. Names that would become legendary. Names that would reshape modern warfare. They stood before Hitler with maps, charts, tactical diagrams. The idea they presented sounded insane, suicidal even. Instead of attacking Belgium from the north, they would drive the entire German army through the Ardennes Mountains. The same strategy as World War I had failed. Everyone knew it would fail again. Except, these 3 generals had a different idea. A radical idea. Hitler interrupted immediately. The Ardennes, that's impossible. It's a mountain range. How does an entire army fit through an eye of a needle? The question wasn't rhetorical. It was genuine confusion. The Ardennes represented everything tanks couldn't do: steep slopes, dense forests, narrow roads, terrible terrain. Guderian responded with something that changed everything. Everyone thinks tanks are slow support vehicles. We're going to use them like race cars. Fast, aggressive, unstoppable. We'll be in France before they know we've crossed the border. We'll be behind their lines before they can react. Hitler leaned forward, interested now. But only if we reach Sedan in 3 days and 3 nights. No stops, no breaks, no sleep. Hitler's skepticism returned immediately. 3 days and nights? Without rest? That's not humanly possible. The statement hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew he was right. The human body has limits. Soldiers need sleep, need food, need rest. You can't fight physics, can't fight biology, can't fight human nature. That's when they mentioned Professor Ranke's research. The room went quiet, completely quiet. Someone had done the impossible. Someone had found a way to eliminate human limitations. Ranke was called in to present. He entered carrying folders. Thick folders filled with data, reports, evidence, charts, graphs, scientific proof. He stood before Hitler and the generals, the men who would decide Germany's fate. He brought his clinical trials. 90 medical students, 14 hours awake, still requesting to party. He brought his field reports from Poland. Soldiers fighting for 72 hours straight. 0 fatigue casualties. He brought his physiological data. Heart rate, reaction time, pain tolerance, fear response. All measured, all documented, all proven. The generals leaned forward. Every eye in the room focused on Ranke. You're saying your drug keeps soldiers awake for 3 days? The question came from Guderian, tank commander, the man who would lead the assault. Ranke nodded. Not just awake, alert, focused, fearless. I have the clinical data. I have the field reports from Poland. I have everything you need to make this decision. Hitler asked the only question that mattered. The only question that ever mattered to Hitler. How much do we need? Ranke calculated on the spot. Did the math in his head. Divisions. Men per division. Days of combat. Pills per man per day. For the entire offensive, approximately 35 million tablets. Silence. Complete silence. 35 million tablets of methamphetamine. The largest drug operation in human history, not for profit, not for recreation, for war, to turn an entire army into something beyond human, to eliminate the thing that had always decided wars: fatigue, human limitation, biological necessity. Then, Hitler made the decision. Simple, direct, final. Do it. Write the decree. April 1940. Ranke wrote what became known as the Stimulant Decree, the most unusual military order in modern history, perhaps in all of history. An official document prescribing methamphetamine use for an entire army. Not hidden, not classified, not secret. Official, documented, systematized. The decree specified everything, left nothing to chance, nothing to interpretation. Dosage, 2 tablets per soldier for active combat. Timing, 1 tablet every 4 to 6 hours during operations. Distribution, medical officers control supplies, no exceptions. Duration, up to 72 hours continuous use, maximum. Withdrawal protocols, 48 hours minimum rest after extended use. Required. Every detail planned, every contingency covered, every risk calculated. Except they didn't actually calculate the risks, didn't understand what they were doing, didn't comprehend the consequences. Temler Pharma received the order. Produce and deliver 35 million Pervitin tablets. Deadline, April 30th, 1940. 1 month. 30 days to produce enough methamphetamine to fuel an invasion. The factory went to 24-hour operations, 3 shifts. Continuous production, never stopping. They hired extra workers, hundreds of them. Built new production lines, expanded capacity, increased output. The pills poured out, thousands per hour, millions per week, packed in small tins, metal containers, labeled Pervitin, military issue. Each tin held 20 tablets, enough for 1 soldier for 10 days of combat, assuming standard dosing, assuming compliance with protocols, assuming rational use. None of those assumptions would hold. They shipped the tins to Wehrmacht supply depots across Germany. Train cars full of methamphetamine, warehouses stocked with pills. Then to the French border, staging areas, assembly points. Then to the front lines, directly to combat units. Every tank crew received their supply, enough for the entire offensive. Every infantry unit got their allocation, calculated precisely. Every pilot in the Luftwaffe had Pervitin in their cockpit, ready for immediate use. Medical officers gave instructions, read from official protocols. 2 pills when combat starts, 2 more every 6 hours if needed. Do not exceed 8 pills in 24 hours. The warnings sounded official, professional, safe. They weren't. Some soldiers were skeptical, didn't trust drugs, didn't trust chemicals, wanted to rely on training, discipline, skill. Most were curious, heard stories from Poland, heard about the effects, wanted to try it themselves. All of them were about to find out what methamphetamine does to an army, what it does to war, what it does to human beings operating at the edge of capability. Dawn breaks over the Ardennes, May 10, 1940. 2,750 German tanks lined up, 41 divisions ready to move, 136,000 men prepared to attack. The largest mechanized assault in history. Medical officers distributed the pills, 2 per soldier, standard protocol. Swallow with water. Wait 30 minutes. Instructions repeated across the entire front. Thousands of men, tens of thousands, all taking methamphetamine simultaneously. At 5:35 a.m., the artillery opened fire. The bombardment began. At 5:45 a.m., the Luftwaffe bombers appeared overhead, the sky filled with aircraft. At 6 a.m., the tanks started moving. The invasion began. Within an hour, soldiers reported feeling the effects. Heart racing, not from fear, from chemistry. Energy surging, flooding their systems. Fear vanishing. Completely. Utterly. A young tank commander wrote in his diary, I feel like I could drive to Paris without stopping. He would. He did. The German advance was unlike anything in military history, unlike anything anyone had seen before. Tank columns moved at speeds no one thought possible, 30 kilometers per hour, through forests, crushing trees, through mud, never slowing, through terrain everyone said was impossible for tanks. They did it anyway. They drove through the day, continuous movement. They drove through the night, no rest. They kept driving, never stopping. French scouts reported back, sent desperate messages. The Germans are coming through the Ardennes. Their commanders didn't believe it, refused to believe it. Impossible. Tanks can't move through those mountains. By the time they realized it was true, by the time they accepted reality, it was too late. The German army was already behind French lines, already cutting through their defenses, already unstoppable. German soldiers weren't eating. Food became irrelevant. Appetite suppression, side effect of methamphetamine. They weren't sleeping. Sleep became impossible. Central nervous system stimulation, another side effect. They weren't stopping, never stopping. This was the goal, the entire purpose. Eliminate human limitations. One French soldier later described it. His testimony survived, recorded in military archives. They looked like demons, eyes wide, pupils huge, moving too fast, too aggressive. They didn't act like normal men. Because they weren't normal men anymore. They were men on methamphetamine, enhanced, modified, chemically altered. On May 13th, 3 days after starting, German forces reached Sedan, exactly on schedule, precisely as planned. They had crossed terrain everyone said was impassable, in exactly the time Ronk predicted, without sleeping, without stopping, without breaking. The French lines collapsed, completely, instantly, overwhelmed by speed they couldn't match, aggression they couldn't counter, men who never stopped coming. The next 6 weeks were carnage, pure carnage. German forces moved so fast that French units couldn't establish defensive positions, couldn't dig in, couldn't prepare. They would set up in a town, start building defenses, only to have German tanks appear hours later. Already there, already attacking. How are they moving so fast? French commanders asked. No answers. Where are they coming from? British officers demanded. No explanation. They should be exhausted, everyone agreed. But they weren't exhausted. They were on Pervitin. Tank crews stayed in their vehicles for 36 hours straight, never leaving, never resting. Pilots flew multiple missions per day with no rest. Land, refuel, take more pills, take off again. Infantry units marched 50 kilometers, fought a battle, then marched another 30. Repeat. The psychological effect was devastating, more effective than any weapon. French soldiers reported hallucinations from sleep deprivation, seeing things that weren't there. German soldiers were hallucinating from methamphetamine, also seeing things that weren't there. But they were hallucinating while still fighting, still advancing, still winning. British expeditionary forces were overwhelmed, couldn't keep up, couldn't respond. The French army was in full retreat, collapsing, disintegrating. Belgium surrendered, could not hold. The Netherlands fell, conquered in days. Winston Churchill watched in horror from London, reading reports, receiving updates. He couldn't understand what he was seeing, couldn't explain it, couldn't comprehend it. He wrote in a memo. The document survived. Historical record. The German army appears to move without rest. Their speed defies all military logic. It's as if they've discovered a way to eliminate human limitations. He was right. Absolutely right. They had discovered it. Pervitin. Methamphetamine. Chemistry defeating biology. On June 14, 1940, German forces entered Paris. 6 weeks after the invasion started, France, one of the world's great military powers, had fallen. Conquered, defeated, occupied. Hitler was ecstatic, vindicated, triumphant. The generals were vindicated. Their insane plan had worked. Professor Ranke was proved right. His research, his data, his drug. Pervitin had won the Battle of France. Victory came with a cost. As the Pervitin wore off, German soldiers started experiencing something new. Something the medical trials hadn't fully captured. Something nobody was prepared for. The crash. June 1940. The battle is won. France has surrendered. Germany controls Western Europe. Hitler is celebrating. The generals are celebrating. The newspapers are celebrating. Total victory. Complete conquest. 6 weeks from invasion to occupation. The fastest military victory in modern history. But, in field hospitals across occupied France, doctors are seeing something disturbing. Something that wasn't in the reports. Something that wasn't supposed to happen. German soldiers aren't celebrating. They're collapsing. One field hospital near Sedan, the same city German forces reached after their 3-day methamphetamine-fueled march. 47 soldiers admitted in a single day. Not from combat wounds, not from injuries, not from anything that happened during the fighting. From what doctors initially called combat exhaustion. Standard diagnosis, expected after intense combat. Soldiers get tired, they rest, they recover. Simple. Except the symptoms were wrong. Completely wrong. Normal exhaustion follows a pattern. Soldiers sleep for 12 to 18 hours. Deep sleep, restorative sleep. Wake up groggy but functional. Eat, drink, rest some more. Recover after food and rest. Back to normal within days. These soldiers, different, fundamentally different. Can't sleep even though exhausted. Bodies shutting down but minds racing. Shaking uncontrollably. Violent tremors. Hands, arms, entire bodies. Extreme paranoia. Convinced everyone is plotting against them. Violent mood swings. Calm one moment. Screaming the next. Some are seeing things that aren't there. Full hallucinations. Visual, auditory, tactile. One 19-year-old tank driver, admitted to the field hospital. Convinced French soldiers are hiding under his bed, waiting to kill him. There is no bed. He's standing in the middle of an empty tent, screaming at shadows, fighting invisible enemies. It takes 4 orderlies to restrain him. A medical officer writes in his report, "The document survived. Filed in military archives. The men are experiencing symptoms consistent with severe stimulant withdrawal. Multiple cases of acute psychosis. 2 soldiers had to be restrained after attacking medical staff." He underlined that last sentence twice. Another doctor notices a pattern, starts tracking cases, comparing symptoms, reviewing medical histories. Every soldier showing these symptoms took Pervitin continuously for 48 hours or more. Not coincidence. Causation. Clear causation. The more pills they took, the worse the crash. Direct correlation. Mathematical relationship. 3 days of methamphetamine equals weeks of psychological breakdown. The doctors didn't know what to do. Had no training for this. No protocols. No procedures. No treatment guidelines. Methamphetamine withdrawal wasn't in medical textbooks, wasn't taught in medical school. They were improvising, guessing, hoping. As German forces consolidated their victory, the full scale of the problem emerged. Thousands of soldiers were non-functional. Not hundreds. Thousands. Not from injuries, not from combat trauma, from methamphetamine withdrawal. The symptoms were brutal. Physical symptoms destroyed bodies, extreme fatigue that sleep couldn't fix. Soldiers sleeping 16 hours and waking up more exhausted. Violent tremors, hands shaking so badly they couldn't hold utensils. Severe muscle pain, every movement agony. Digestive problems, vomiting, diarrhea, complete system failure. Some soldiers couldn't stand without shaking, legs giving out, balance destroyed. Psychological symptoms, destroyed minds, deep depression, suicidal depression, the kind that makes death seem reasonable. Paranoid delusions, everyone is an enemy, everyone is plotting, everyone is lying. Aggressive outbursts, violence without cause, attacking fellow soldiers, attacking officers, suicidal thoughts, constant intrusive thoughts about death, complete personality changes. Men who were calm became violent. Men who were brave became terrified. Men who were stable became insane. One sergeant wrote to his family. The letter survived. His daughter kept it, published it decades later. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I sleep for 16 hours and wake up more tired. I can't eat. Everything tastes wrong. I want to cry, but I can't. I want to scream, but nothing comes out." His unit commander reported. Filed official paperwork. Sergeant Mueller took approximately 30 Pervitin tablets over 5 days during the advance. He has not been functional since the armistice. Request immediate medical evaluation. Field hospitals started seeing soldiers with conditions that shouldn't exist. Perforated ulcers, from not eating for days. Stomachs digesting themselves. Severe dehydration. Bodies consuming themselves for water. Heart palpitations. Irregular rhythms. Dangerous rhythms. Some developed psychotic episodes that lasted weeks, not days, weeks. Months in some cases. Permanent in others. One particularly disturbing case, documented extensively. A 24-year-old infantryman who took Pervitin continuously for 6 days. followed protocols, never exceeded recommended daily dose, just kept taking it, day after day. When the fighting stopped, he couldn't stop moving. His body wouldn't let him rest. Brain chemistry completely disrupted. He would pace for hours, back and forth, then collapse. Sleep for 30 minutes, wake up, pace again, repeat. After 72 hours of this, after 3 days of this torture, he grabbed a rifle, tried to rejoin the battle. Officers found him in full combat gear, marching toward the front lines. There was no battle. The war in France was over. He was having a complete psychotic break. Reality had ceased to exist for him. He had to be sedated, physically restrained, chemically knocked unconscious, sent home. Medical discharge. His military career was over. He was 24 years old. His entire life destroyed. By pills. By official military policy. By the stimulant decree. Then came an even darker revelation. Something worse than withdrawal. Something worse than psychosis. Soldiers who crashed didn't want to stay crashed, didn't accept their condition. They wanted more Pervitin, needed more Pervitin. One company commander reported, filed complaint after complaint. My men are demanding their Pervitin rations. We have no combat operations. They don't care. They want the pills. The military discovered something Temler's advertisements never mentioned. Something the clinical trials didn't reveal. Something Professor Ronca didn't predict. Methamphetamine is extraordinarily addictive. Take it once, you feel amazing. Euphoria, energy, confidence. Take it twice, you feel amazing again. Same effects, same high. Take it 10 times, you need to feel amazing. Not want, need. Chemical dependency, brain adaptation, receptor modification. By July 1940, Wehrmacht medical officers were reporting widespread dependency, not isolated cases, widespread, systemic, epidemic. Soldiers were hoarding pills, taking more than allocated, hiding supplies, trading cigarettes for Pervitin. Black market transactions, cigarettes worth more than money in the army. Forging medical requisition forms, falsifying paperwork, creating fake injuries. Some were stealing from medical supplies, breaking into locked cabinets, raiding field hospitals. A black market emerged. Organized, systematic. Soldiers would sell their Pervitin rations to other soldiers. Price: 5 Reichsmarks per pill, 3 times the civilian pharmacy price. Supply and demand. Economics of addiction. Some officers noticed their men were using Pervitin even during peacetime. Morning formations. Men taking pills just to stand in formation. Guard duty. Taking pills to stay awake on watch. Administrative work. Taking pills to file paperwork. They weren't taking it for combat anymore. Weren't taking it for survival. They were taking it because they couldn't function without it. Chemical dependency complete. One medical officer wrote a classified report to high command. Top secret. Eyes only. We have created a dependency problem of unprecedented scale. Thousands of soldiers require Pervitin to maintain normal function. Withdrawal attempts result in violent behavior and psychological breakdown. We have, effectively, created an army of addicts. The reports reached Berlin. High Command reviewed them. Medical staff presented evidence. The generals read them, studied them, discussed them. The reaction was mixed, divided. Some argued for immediate restriction, saw the danger, understood the problem. We need to control Pervitin distribution before this becomes worse. Others argued for continuation, focused on results, ignored consequences. France fell in 6 weeks. Pervitin works. The side effects are manageable. Manageable. Thousands of addicted soldiers. Hundreds experiencing psychosis. Dozens permanently damaged. Manageable. In September 1940, the Surgeon General finally issued new guidelines. Official policy. Military doctrine. Pervitin use should be limited to active combat operations only. Maximum 72 consecutive hours. Mandatory 48-hour rest period after use. Medical supervision required. Sounds reasonable. Sounds safe. Sounds like proper military medicine. In practice, completely ignored. Why? Because Germany was preparing for the next campaign. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. The largest military operation in human history. 3.8 million German soldiers. 600,000 vehicles. 750,000 horses. Across a front stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. 2,900 kilometers. The generals had one question. Only one question that mattered. How do we keep 3.8 million men moving across Russia? How do we maintain the offensive? How do we prevent fatigue? How do we achieve victory? The answer, once again, was Pervitin. Same solution, same drug, same mistake on a larger scale. Temler Pharma received a new order. Double production, immediately. More pills, more methamphetamine, more addicts. But there was something the generals didn't know. Something happening behind closed doors. Someone very close to Hitler was watching the Pervitin situation. Watching the soldiers. Watching the effects. Watching the addiction. Someone who saw opportunity, not danger. Opportunity. Someone who believed he could do better. Could refine the formula. Could enhance the effects. A personal physician named Theodore Morel. He had an idea. A terrible idea. What if we made it stronger? Dr. Theodore Morel was not a typical physician. Not even close. Overweight. Seriously overweight. Unkempt. Clothes always wrinkled. Bad hygiene. Body odor that other Nazi officials complained about. Other Nazi officials called him the Reichsmaster of injections, mocking him. Some called him a quack, a fraud, a charlatan pretending to practice medicine. Hitler called him a genius, a lifesaver, the only doctor who understood. They met in 1936. Hitler had chronic stomach problems, severe stomach problems, constant pain, bloating, cramping, digestive issues that made every meal torture. Multiple doctors had tried to help. All failed. Traditional treatments, dietary changes, medications, nothing worked. The pain continued. Morel examined him, confident, assured. Made a promise that would change history. I will cure you, but you must trust me completely. Trust without question. Trust without understanding. Blind trust. He gave Hitler an injection, told him it was vitamins, some glucose for energy, some other things for health. Proprietary formula, secret recipe. Hitler felt amazing within 30 minutes. The stomach pain vanished, completely gone. Energy flooded his system, like electricity through his veins. He felt 20 years younger, revitalized, reborn. From that moment, Morel became Hitler's personal physician. Exclusive access, total control. And Hitler became Morel's most important patient. His meal ticket, his path to power. What Hitler didn't know, what he never knew, the vitamin injection contained methamphetamine, pure methamphetamine. Along with the vitamins, along with the glucose, mixed together, delivered directly into the bloodstream. Morel had discovered something interesting, something that would make him indispensable. Pervitin worked well in pill form. Civilians took it daily. Soldiers took it in combat. Effective, proven. But injection? Completely different. Much faster. Hits the bloodstream immediately. Much stronger. Higher bioavailability. Concentrated dose. Much more addictive. Psychological dependency develops quickly. He began experimenting with different formulations, different doses, testing what worked, different combinations. Methamphetamine plus this, methamphetamine plus that. Creating custom cocktails, personalized drugs. He kept detailed notes, obsessive notes. Every injection documented, every drug listed, every date recorded. Those notes survived the war. Hidden, preserved, recovered by Allied forces. And they reveal something horrifying. Something that explains so much about Hitler's behavior, about his decisions, about the war itself. Between 1936 and 1945, Theodor Morel gave Hitler over 80 different substances. Let's be absolutely clear about what that means. Not 80 doses, not 80 injections. 80 different drugs, 80 separate chemical compounds. Some were harmless, relatively harmless. Vitamins, B12, B complex, vitamin C, glucose for energy, dextrose for blood sugar, standard medical supplies. Some were questionable, dubious at best. Bull semen extract. Morel claimed it boosted vitality. No scientific evidence. Hormone preparations. Experimental formulas. Compounds Morel created himself. Untested. Unproven. Dangerous. Some were extremely dangerous. Lethally dangerous. Methamphetamine. Marketed as Vitamultin to hide what it was. Eucodol. Oxycodone. Same drug as modern OxyContin. Highly addictive opioid. Cocaine. For throat treatments, Morel claimed. Strychnine. Yes, the poison. Rat poison. in therapeutic doses supposedly. Atropine, in toxic doses. Dozens more. The list goes on and on. By 1941, Hitler was receiving injections multiple times per day. Not once, multiple times. Sometimes 8 injections daily. Sometimes 10. Sometimes more. Morning routine. Stimulant cocktail. Methamphetamine plus glucose plus vitamins. Wake-up formula. Get moving formula. Afternoon routine. Energy boost, Morel called it. More methamphetamine, plus hormones, plus experimental compounds. Evening routine. Pain relief. Oxycodone plus other opioids. Numb the body. Numb the mind. Night routine. Sleep aids, barbiturates. Force the body to rest. Counteract the stimulants. One of Morel's favorite cocktails. His signature mixture. Vitamin injection, he called it. The name was a lie, complete lie. Methamphetamine plus cocaine plus oxycodone plus glucose. Read that again. Meth, coke, oxy, sugar. He called it a special preparation for enhanced performance. Medical terminology, professional language. It was a speedball mixed with vitamins. Street drug, junkie drug. Delivered to the Führer. Hitler didn't know the exact contents, never asked, didn't want to know. He trusted Morel completely. Absolute trust. And Morel gave him whatever kept him coming back. Whatever maintained the dependency. Whatever ensured his position. People around Hitler started noticing changes, behavioral changes, personality changes. Couldn't ignore them anymore. Albert Speer, Hitler's architect, wrote in his diary, private diary, never meant for publication. The Führer's behavior has become erratic. His mood swings are severe. One moment, overwhelming confidence. The next, rage at imagined betrayals. Hitler's secretaries noticed, documented their observations. He talks incessantly, for hours, about architecture, about his youth, about his plans. He doesn't seem to need sleep anymore. Talking without stopping, monologues lasting hours. His generals noticed, complained privately. He makes decisions impulsively. He changes his mind repeatedly. He trusts no one. He sees conspiracies everywhere. Military decisions, strategic decisions, made without consultation, changed without explanation. Classic methamphetamine effects, documented in medical literature. Grandiosity, belief in one's own superiority. Paranoia, everyone is an enemy. Insomnia, cannot sleep, will not sleep. Compulsive behavior, repetitive actions, obsessive thoughts. Mood instability, rapid swings, extreme emotions. By 1943, the physical effects were obvious, undeniable, visible to everyone. Filmed footage from late 1943 shows the deterioration. Documentary evidence, historical record. Left hand trembling uncontrollably. Constant shaking. Hitler hiding his hand behind his back, trying to conceal it. Facial tics, involuntary movements, jaw clenching, grinding teeth, jerky, uncoordinated movements, motor control failing. Parkinson's disease? Maybe, possibly, but also classic signs of long-term stimulant abuse. Documented side effects. His teeth were rotting. Dental records show extensive decay. His skin was gray and sweaty, pallor of chronic drug use. He had developed a permanent tremor, not just in his hand, throughout his body. His posture was bent, skeletal alignment failing. He looked 20 years older than he was. Accelerated aging, drug-induced deterioration. One of his doctors examined him in 1944. Not Morell. Different doctor. Independent examination. He was shocked, horrified. The Führer is being poisoned. These substances are toxic. He's showing signs of strychnine poisoning. He told Hitler this directly, warned him, begged him to stop. Hitler flew into a rage, explosive rage. Dr. Morell is keeping me alive. Without him, I couldn't function. You're trying to sabotage me. The doctor was dismissed. Immediately. Permanently. Morell stayed. Protected. Indispensable. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler's drug use intensified. Increased. Accelerated. By 1944, he was living in the Führer bunker, underground, concrete tomb, isolated, cut off from reality, paranoid, surrounded by enemies real and imagined. Morell was one of the few people allowed to stay with him. Inner circle, trusted physician, essential personnel. The injections continued, never stopped. 8 times a day, 10 times a day. Sometimes more. Constant chemical modification. New addition to the cocktail. Massive doses of Eucodol, oxycodone. Powerful opioid, highly addictive. Opioids do something interesting to paranoid meth users. Something Morell understood. Exploited. They don't cure the paranoia, can't eliminate it. They just make you not care about it. Emotional numbing. Chemical disconnection. Hitler would rant about betrayal for hours, screaming, raving, accusing everyone. Then Morell would inject him with Eucodol. Within minutes, change. Hitler would become calm, drowsy, disconnected. The combination was destroying him. Systematically, irreversibly. Methamphetamine keeping him awake and paranoid. Central nervous system stimulation. Opioids making him numb and dissociated. Emotional blunting. His body shutting down from the toxicity. Organ damage. His mind fragmenting from the drugs. Cognitive deterioration. By early 1945, Allied bombing had destroyed Germany's pharmaceutical infrastructure. Timler factory bombed. Production stopped. Chemical plants bombed. Supply chain destroyed. Supply chains collapsed. Distribution impossible. The drug supplies started running out. Moral stockpile depleting. Hitler's supply threatened. Morell tried to source drugs from whatever remained. Desperate measures. He sent staff to raid pharmacies in bombed-out Berlin. Dangerous missions. through ruins, through rubble. They went from pharmacy to pharmacy, searching, hunting, searching for Eucadol, for oxycodone, for anything. Sometimes they found it, small amounts, expired supplies. Sometimes they didn't. Empty shelves, destroyed inventory. When they didn't, Hitler went into withdrawal, full withdrawal. Multiple drugs simultaneously. Opioid withdrawal is brutal, documented, studied. Flu-like symptoms, severe pain, body aches, nausea and vomiting, constant. Anxiety, overwhelming. Insomnia. Cannot sleep despite exhaustion. Dysphoria, emotional pain. On top of methamphetamine withdrawal. Compounding effects. Depression. Suicidal depression. Exhaustion. Beyond fatigue. Paranoia. Everyone is an enemy. Psychosis. Break from reality. Hitler already had multiple health conditions from years of drug abuse. Documented conditions. Medical records. Irritable bowel syndrome. Chronic digestive problems. Skin lesions. Dermatological issues. Cardiac arrhythmia. Irregular heartbeat. Coronary artery disease. Damaged arteries. Possible Parkinson's disease. Neurological deterioration. Now he was experiencing all of that sober for the first time in years. No chemical buffer. No pharmaceutical protection. While losing a war. Military collapse. While surrounded by enemies. Soviet forces advancing. While his country burned around him. Germany destroyed. April 1945. Soviet forces are 1 kilometer from the Führer bunker. Artillery range. Infantry assault imminent. Hitler sends Morel away. Dismisses him. He's one of the last people Hitler dismisses from the bunker. Final acts. Last decisions. But before leaving, Morel gives Hitler one final gift. One last service. A cyanide capsule. Suicide pill. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler uses it. End. The autopsy performed by Soviet doctors found evidence. Physical evidence. Severely damaged liver. Cirrhosis from toxicity. Heart damage consistent with long-term stimulant abuse. Cardiomyopathy. Evidence of chronic poisoning. Multiple toxins. Signs of Parkinson's disease. Neurological damage and high levels of chemical compounds. Even in death, the drugs were still in his system. Still present. Still detectable. Hitler wasn't the only high-ranking Nazi addicted to drugs. Systemic problem. Hermann Goering, head of the Luftwaffe, was a morphine addict. Documented addiction. He carried a suitcase of pills everywhere. Paranoid about supply. Heinrich Himmler used stimulants. Regular user. Many SS officers were on Pervitin. Widespread use. But the regular soldiers, they had something different coming. Something new. Something worse than Pervitin. Something called DIX. 1944. Germany is losing. Badly losing. The Allies have landed in Normandy, June 6th, D-Day. Beaches stormed, positions established. The Soviets are advancing from the east. Relentless advance. Crushing German forces. German forces are stretched impossibly thin. Two fronts. Too many enemies, not enough soldiers. The Wehrmacht needs soldiers, desperately needs them. More soldiers. Can't recruit fast enough. Better soldiers. Current forces failing. Soldiers who don't break down. Don't collapse. Don't surrender. A team of pharmacologists, led by Gerhard Orzechowski, receives an order, direct from high command. Make something better than Pervitin. Improve the formula. Increase effectiveness. Eliminate weaknesses. They work at a facility in Kiel, northern Germany. Top secret location. Codename Project D. The letter D for Droger, German for drugs. Their goal was clear, explicit, horrifying. Create a drug that eliminates all human weakness. Strip away limitations. Remove conscience. No fatigue. Never tired. No pain. Cannot feel injury. No fear. Eliminate self-preservation. No moral hesitation. Remove humanity. They developed 10 iterations, 10 different formulas, DI through DX. Each one stronger. Each one more dangerous. Each one more toxic. DIX was the final formula, the strongest, the most effective, the most lethal. Each tablet contained a precise mixture, carefully calculated, scientifically formulated. 5 milligrams oxycodone, powerful opioid painkiller, eliminates physical pain. 5 milligrams cocaine, stimulant and local anesthetic, increases alertness, numbs everything. 3 milligrams methamphetamine, Pervitin, the base drug, the foundation. Read that again. Understand what this means. Every single pill was meth plus coke plus oxy. 3 of the most addictive drugs ever discovered, combined in one tablet. The ultimate speedball. Street drug combination. In tablet form. Military issue. Government approved. They needed to test it. Standard procedure. Scientific method. They needed subjects. Human subjects. Living humans. Sachsenhausen concentration camp, just north of Berlin, 30 kilometers away. SS doctors selected prisoners for medical experiments. Euphemism. Murder disguised as research. The prisoners weren't told what they were testing. No informed consent. Weren't given a choice. No choice. No rights. No humanity. The test protocol was simple. Brutally simple. Give prisoners D1X tablets. Force them to march. Measure how long until collapse. Measure how long until death. One documented test. Records survived. Allied forces found them. 18 prisoners given D1X at 6 a.m., morning dose. Made to carry 20-kilogram backpacks, heavy load, standard military equipment weight. Forced to march in circles around the camp. Endless circles. No destination, no purpose, just movement. The SS guards expected them to collapse after a few hours. Normal human limits. Expected outcome. 6 hours passed. Prisoners still marching. Unusual. 12 hours passed. Still marching. Impressive. 18 hours passed. Still marching. Beyond human. By hour 24, something had changed. Something wrong. Something terrifying. The prisoners were still moving. Bodies still functioning. But they weren't human anymore. Not recognizably human. Their eyes were wide and fixed, unblinking, staring at nothing. They moved mechanically, no natural gait, robot movements. They didn't respond to commands, couldn't hear, couldn't process. Some were making strange noises, grunting, moaning, inhuman sounds. Several were bleeding from their noses, capillaries bursting, blood pressure through the roof. At hour 30, the first prisoner collapsed. Sudden collapse. Massive heart failure. Cardiac arrest. Dead within minutes. No resuscitation possible. At hour 35, 2 more collapsed. Bodies giving out. One dead immediately. Heart stopped. One survived but with permanent brain damage. Oxygen deprivation. Cognitive destruction. The remaining prisoners marched until hour 40. 40 hours of continuous movement. No food, no water, no rest. Then they started dropping, one by one, bodies failing, hearts stopping, brains dying. Final death count documented. 7 out of 18. 7 dead. 39% mortality rate, the SS doctors wrote in their report. Official documentation. DIX extends human performance beyond normal limits. Fatal side effects occur after approximately 30 to 40 hours of continuous activity. Recommend limiting use to 24-hour periods maximum. They considered the test a success. Success. 7 people dead. 39% mortality rate. Acceptable. Acceptable losses. Acceptable casualties. Despite the horrific test results, despite the deaths, Wehrmacht Command approved DIX for production. Military approval. Official authorization. The plan was clear, detailed, systematic. Mass-produce DIX tablets, industrial scale. Distribute to elite units first, SS divisions, commandos. Expand to regular forces if successful. Wehrmacht-wide deployment. Deploy on both eastern and western fronts. Total war usage. Target production. 5 million tablets by April 1945. Ambitious target. Impossible target. They specifically wanted it for particular mission types. Suicide missions. When soldiers needed to fight to the death, DIX would keep them fighting long after a normal human would surrender or flee. Remove survival instinct. Last stand defenses. Berlin was about to be surrounded. DIX would keep defenders fighting for days without sleep. Urban warfare. House to house. Deep penetration raids. Special forces missions behind enemy lines. DIX could keep commandos operational for 48 hours or more. No resupply. No support. Production began at pharmaceutical facilities still operating. Few remaining, most destroyed. But by late 1944, Allied bombing had crippled German industry. Systematic destruction. Strategic targeting. Chemical precursors were scarce. Supply chains broken. Factory equipment was damaged. Machinery destroyed. Transportation networks were destroyed. Rails bombed. Roads cratered. They managed to produce approximately 100,000 DIX tablets. Fraction of target. 5% of goal. A fraction of what they needed. Nowhere near enough. Small quantities were distributed to select units, elite forces, desperate measures. U-boat crews for extended patrols. Underwater operations. Days submerged. Commandos units, special operations, high-risk missions. Some Waffen-SS units defending Berlin. Final defense. Last stand. There are scattered reports of its use. Fragmentary evidence. Incomplete records. U-boat crews using it for 36-hour attack runs. Continuous operations. SS defenders staying awake during the Battle of Berlin. Urban combat. Commando units on final raids into Allied territory. Suicide missions. But Germany was collapsing. Total collapse. The supply chains were gone, completely destroyed. The war was ending. Inevitable defeat. D-Nights never became widespread. Never reached mass deployment. The Allies discovered the remaining supplies and documents after Germany's surrender, May 1945. They were horrified, shocked, disgusted. British medical officers examined the formula, chemical analysis, studied the research, read the test results. They wrote in their official report, "This compound represents the most dangerous combat drug ever developed. The lethality rate is unconscionable. This should never be produced again. They destroyed the remaining tablets, incinerated them. They classified the research, top secret, buried it. May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders. Unconditional surrender. The Pervitin story doesn't end. Consequences continue. Allied investigators discovered evidence. Mountains of evidence. Millions of Pervitin tablets in Wehrmacht stockpiles. Warehouses full. Thousands of soldiers addicted to methamphetamine. Chemical dependency. Civilian populations struggling with widespread addiction. Housewives, students, workers. Pharmaceutical records showing production of over 200 million Pervitin tablets during the war. 200 million. Germany had consumed an entire nation's worth of methamphetamine. National addiction. Government-sponsored epidemic. The addiction crisis lasted years after the war ended, didn't stop with surrender. German soldiers returning home faced problems. Multiple problems. Many couldn't function without Pervitin. Complete dependency. Withdrawal caused severe depression. Suicidal depression. Suicide rates were high. Documented increase. Criminal activity increased as addicts sought drugs. Black market. Theft. Violence. Temler Pharma still exists today, never shut down. They stopped producing Pervitin in 1988, 43 years after the war. But the company continued operating, still operating, making other pharmaceuticals, different products, never fully acknowledging what they had done. No accountability, no consequences. The research documents survived, filed away, archived. The formulas survived, chemical knowledge preserved. The lessons were learned? Questionable. 1950s to 1960s. U.S. military experimented with amphetamines. Same drugs, different country. 1960s to 1970s. Amphetamines became widespread in civilian use. Legal prescriptions, diet pills, study aids. 2000s to present. Methamphetamine epidemic in multiple countries. United States, Mexico, Southeast Asia. The Pervitin story shows something dark about human nature. Uncomfortable truth. We've known methamphetamine is dangerous since 1940. Documented evidence. We've known it causes addiction since 1940. Clinical proof. We've known it destroys lives since 1940. Historical record. And we keep making it anyway, keep using it, keep profiting from it. So, where does this leave us? What does this mean? German housewives in 1937 thought they were buying harmless energy pills. No addiction risk. They were wrong, completely wrong. German soldiers in 1940 thought they were using performance enhancers. Just for combat. They became addicts, chemical dependents. Hitler thought his doctor was keeping him alive. Trust. Faith. The drugs were killing him. Slowly, systematically. Nazi scientists thought they were creating super soldiers. Scientific progress. They were creating zombies who died after 40 hours. Human experimentation. Mass murder. The ultimate irony? Pervitin didn't help Germany win the war. It helped them lose it. Accelerated defeat. France fell quickly. 6 weeks. Blitzkrieg success. But the Pervitin-fueled soldiers crashed hard. Withdrawal. Addiction. By the time Germany invaded Russia, addiction was rampant. Systemic problem. Soldiers were dependent. Chemically dependent. Unreliable. Unpredictable. Breaking down. Physically. Mentally. The drug that was supposed to create an invincible army created an army that couldn't function without drugs. Complete dependency. Hitler's drug addiction made him paranoid, unstable, and incapable of rational military decisions. Strategic failures. The super soldier pill D-Nix killed 39% of test subjects. Murder. Methamphetamine didn't win the war. It destroyed the people using it. Every single person. Everyone. The housewives who bought it for energy. Addiction. The soldiers who took it for courage. Dependency. The dictator who injected it for strength. Death. All of them ended up the same way, same outcome. Addicted, broken, destroyed. And the companies that made it? Temler Pharma. They made millions in profits, enormous wealth, and faced almost no consequences. No trials. No punishment. That's the real story of Pervitin. True history. Not a story about wonder drugs or military innovation. Not progress. A story about mass addiction. Enabled by governments. Official policy. Sold by corporations. Legal distribution. Devastating millions of lives. Human cost. And the scariest part? Most terrifying truth? It's still happening.